Good morning, Dennis here from Corporate AI Solutions. Today, it's just a bit of a conversation very briefly about how I go about creating the platforms that that I create. Um, where am I? I'm sitting in Townsville at the moment. It's around about 5 in the morning. We've also got a building company, so I'm going out shortly on site to work with the guys to get a steel frame house up. That's another story altogether. The AI journey that I started on about 18 months ago was obviously when ChatGPT sort of was let loose in the wild, but I'd always built for, back end systems and things, but they were never able to be front ended, if you like, because I'm not a coder. But of course, with AI and certainly the development over the last few couple of years, that just changed. And like everybody else, I guess, who gets into the sort of coding from non-coding, where do you start? You don't want to You don't want to learn Python, right? You don't want or Next.js or whatever. So I guess you start with what was available at the time. Make, Zapier. And I then came along. It was very exciting because they had, easy ways to do things. This whole no code, low code scenario out there is something that I spent, I don't know how much time on, but I found it very frustrating, to be honest. It still didn't make the process from ideation to product any simpler, in my opinion. Again, you may have had a different experience, and I know there's millions of people who use all of those low code platforms, and know that works well for you. But I just couldn't make it work for me. Um, oh, and then wow, Bolt came along. You remember Bolt? It's probably still around, but jumped on the Bolt, and it was horrible. It was it was worse. I remember trying to build a website back in late 1990s and using front page. If anybody ever remembers front page, you're probably younger than that, but I used front page to build a website, and it was just the worst. It would crash and you'd lose the whole thing many times. Anyway, so when the Bolt spent a few hundred, couple of $1,000, I guess, on credits, burning up 20 million credits a day or more or whatever, trying to get this thing to generate my idea into some format that could be useful. And most of these things come from my businesses or problems that I see that I think would be good to solve for me, and then we see what we can do with the product. Well, Bolt was horrible. Then Base 44 came along. Wow, Now Base 44 is, I think I had a video when I was yesterday when I was talking about Kira, the new product we got out in the market now. And Base 44 was great, fast, um, relatively intuitive, and at the end of the day, it still couldn't deliver for me. What else did I try? Oh, Lovable. Yeah, jumped on Lovable too. And again, the front end stuff is just magnificent. What can be done so fast, just through a process of, working through the ideation process. But anyway, at the end of the day, to do when you're immersed in developing products and you're doing hours and the iterations and the change of minds and the whatever, and that's the real thing about why I do how I do what I do now. Because as you have an idea and you want to deliver it, it changes, right? And you want to maybe it's a pivot from the original concept of the problem and the solution, or maybe the problem's the same, but solution looks better if you do it this way. So you want to change things around. Or an enhancement. Oh, geez, what about that? That'd be good. Okay. Well, now if I jump back into Bolt, it never do anything. Base 44 was okay. Lovable was probably better. Lovable would have been the best. But what I found was they're all basically wraps. They take an LLM, they wrap Superbase for a back end, they wrap Vercel for a front end, and I basically said, well, okay, well, if you're going to do that, why am I not just using LLMs for coding, plugging it into my own Vercel front end and using Superbase as back end? Okay, so that's what I do. The very simple process is, and I follow this for everything, create a PyCharm project. Now, there's probably other editors out there that are just as good or if not better, but I've been on PyCharm forever. So I create a PyCharm project, number one. I go into Claude typically, and the first thing we do is we frame the project. What's the problem? Why? What impacts does it have? What kind of solutions could be used? So we kind of go through that process, right, of ideation, framed around the problem and possible solutions. And then I use Grok, Gemini, and ChatGPT. I'm having a look at the Hugging Face, the smaller models, whatever else, and there's a range of them. Just haven't had the time to go and have a look. But basically, so I load up Claude with the framework, get the snapshot, if you like, of what the solution should be, run that through Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini. If you haven't heard me talk about them, their personalities. Gemini is somewhat lazy. Just tells you what you should do instead of doing what you want her to do. Grok's nerdy, getting slightly better, but very technical. If you want the technical breakdown of everything, go to Grok. ChatGPT version 5. Sorry, Sam and everybody else. It's not an improvement. Trust me. The attitude or personality, if you like, of ChatGPT 5. It's not good. But very good for architecture, like, working out the framework of the project and the types of things. And as I said, I've done some pretty serious hardening of all of the platforms I'm running now, security-wise and whatever, because of the framework that ChatGPT is giving me. But anyway, so I do all that, come back into, because context is everything. If you don't have context when you're trying to build a product, it's the same as not having context when you're talking to your kids about something, talking to your business partners about something, talking to your wife or your husband about something. If people have no context, and if LLMs have no context, none of it makes sense. And certain LLMs, what LLMs will do is, in the lack of context, they will make up context. So you're happily going down a path of what you think you're doing, and in the background, your coding partner, if you like, is running down a different tram track altogether. So setting it up, and again, it's no different from projects with humans and getting things done with humans. Everybody must be on the same train. Everybody must have the same context. Everybody must know why we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, and the outcome. And I frame that, and certainly in Claude and the way they set up projects, you can do that framing in an MD doc or whatever, and put it in the project docs. And I don't know that necessarily Claude refers back to it before it does anything else, but at least you've got a document there you can reference back and say, are we on track with this? And if we're not, because projects objectives have moved or whatever else, that's fine too. We can go back and revise that, right? Have a version 2 and say, okay, this is the flow. We went from here to here, and here's why. So I've got a reference doc. All the LLMs got a reference doc. If when Claude does it, sometimes just shuts down. At least I can get a snapshot, take the original doc that we're working, the framing doc, and go and keep working with ChatGPT or Grok or something else in the meantime, and then come back. Now, why Claude? Claude builds fast. Claude doesn't build great fast, but builds fast. So you can normally get a working app up, within a day. Typically, you have an idea and you follow this process. Build a project in PyCharm, set up the GitHub repo, set up a Vercel account or project, set up a Superbase project, just get them set up. And I have got some automations in now so that, there are a number of things that have to happen in case you don't know. For example, when you set up a Vercel and a Superbase, set up a Vercel project, you've got to link it back to the GitHub repo. So that you've got to have the GitHub repo in place. You've got to link that back into your PyCharm project so that, you can maintain versionality. So you can always be uploading, adding to the GitHub. Vercel needs that as a reference point. Superbase needs to have Vercel callback and URLs, so they can all tie together. The good thing at the moment, Claude does have visibility into your Vercels, so can check logs and self-check logs. Doesn't always do it and doesn't always check what you wanted to check, but yeah, you get a pretty good synchronicity with that. It should also be linking in Superbase but not yet. And should be also looking at your repo. So you shouldn't have to check, send files and stuff. But again, I think it's a work in progress. So anyway, so here we are with any project. Here's the problem. And let's take a problem that we built for Tuolingo, or the solution we built for Tuolingo. My business partner in the building business, which is Factory to Key. So I have a number of businesses. He has a friend on Magnetic Island, runs a tour company, has foreign guests, foreign visitors, and sometimes they're in language challenges, right? And said to me, do you think you could build something like a two-way translator? So, okay. So I think so. So we framed it out. We worked out, the flow. You've got to understand business. When you're doing business solutions, you've got to understand business too. How does the whole process work from start to finish, right? So you make some assumptions. Okay, I'm a tour guide and I get these guests. Okay, they've got to book somewhere. Going to take them on a tour. I've got to book them in. They're going to know who they are, what languages they speak, or if there's going to be a language sort of translation challenge. So, you got to think that through. And sometimes, that ideation process can also be through the LLM or just generally, understanding what you're doing. But so we put that together. We knew the solution. We knew, again, the whole idea of the ideation process is not so much about the idea of the problem. It's about the idea of the solution. What's it look like at the end of the day? Because again, that comes back to context. If you frame that this is what we're aiming for, right, as any team, then the chances are everybody's minds aligned and thinking, okay, is this decision we're going to make taking us towards that objective, or is it taking it somewhere else? And again, that's how you got to think about the process. So basically what I've done there is get that process locked down, understand where it's at, and then we start to build it with Claude. I mean, there's some basics, and a lot of this stuff is cookie cutter stuff, in terms of the structure of your repo, of your repository, or your code repository. Where I do mono repos because there's no need to have a back end in most cases. Originally, I was building on front end Vercel, back end render. It wasn't necessary. So, we've moved over to Next.js, the framework, and that's what we use for everything. So the structure is pretty much simple, right? And I've now got Claude where I can just say, okay, we'll set up, here's the template structure, get set, scaffolded out, right? And then we'll start looking at what we need to do infill for this particular project. What I'm also trying to do is modularize everything. So, I've got the whole voice AI, and all my stuff is voice AI agent, and I use 11 Labs for that. So 11 Labs, GitHub, Vercel, Superbase, PyCharm. That's the 5 things that I do. And of course, every time you do a project and you need to have a voice agent, you've got to have a certain set of files in place to make it all work. So, over time, I've learned that there is some modularization that can happen and will happen. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're basically creating an architecture that says, here's the voice agent module here. Here is the front end platform side here. Here is the self-creation of and setup of Vercel, Superbase, GitHub, everything else. So basically we can run one program, and that kind of framework and architecture is just done for us. So that's a time saver, because nothing worse than having a component work in this project, and then you come over here and you're rebuilding it, and all of a sudden, because it's got its own mind of its own, and it'll start building something completely different. So what you want to do is say, just call on this module for the voice agent for creation of automatic. Again, what I'm building here is I build a solution, and then I build a platform that can self-generate that solution multiple times. So a different client can just do a configuration that suits them. And again, I don't need to spin it up because the spin up is in the build. So that's how we go about it. The Tuolingo, as I said, we had a client. looking for a solution. And obviously once you say, well, if one tour guide needs a solution for multilingual translation, then probably there's others out there who do. So I built the solution, we trialed it out, it worked fairly well. And then I built Duolingo on top of that as a platform and a sign, you know, so any tour guide can join, sign up, subscribe for, and then start using it. And then from there, Duolingo, okay, we're now got a multilingual two-way translation happening. Tour guides, yeah. Who else might need it? Conferences, Zoom, you know, Teams. Any situation where people are coming together where there's a language difference and they would prefer to have better communications without, you know, me trying to speak your language or what in a two-way real-time scenario. So, you know, we look at how we horizontalize that. Same vertical, I guess, if you like, but take it from tour guides to conferences to whatever. So that's, you know, that's how I go about building. If I can leave you with one thing, it's five elements to the build. Like build components. PyCharm as a code-based editor. GitHub repo for the repo, obviously, for the repository of your code. Make sure you track it and you don't lose it and everything else. Vercel for the front end. Superbase for the back end. And 11 Labs, again, you can choose, but I use 11 Labs for the agent, for the voice agents, if you want to build voice agents. But if anybody would like to learn a bit more about that, I'm thinking about how we would structure a course, but it's not that important to me. I'd rather be building stuff. But if you'd like to join me, I've also put a whole range of things on my platform, my website and marketplace, where I've got all of the solutions that I've built and the things that are coming up and the opportunities that are coming out that way. If you'd like to join me on that journey, we can build stuff together. I'm looking for go-to-market experts. I'm looking for I am looking for coders as hardeners. You know, I need when you build out a platform, it's a solution, right? But just like anything else, experts in the field will know the tricks and the traps and the way to make sure that all of the edge cases, all the things that, you know, can happen, could happen, will happen, are dealt with, because you just need to not have things break. Successful product, thousands, tens of thousands of people. That's not the time to find out it's going to break. Trust me. So anyway, that's how I go about building all of the corporate AI solution stuff, all of our platforms. As I said, it's voice AI agent driven. That's the core. Pretty much everything I do build or want to build is based around a voice AI agent, because I think the interaction of any other solution is simpler. You know, just talk through things with a thing, and you'll find that the process of coming to where you want to get to is always going to be easier. So now, that was a bit of a overview of what I've been doing. And if you'd like to learn a bit more about that, then DM me and we'll have a conversation. And certainly I'm happy to give a hand to people who want to get in that space. And I am building out the Long Tail AI Ventures Fund, which is a venture studio approach. You can go on the website and have a look at it. The whole idea with that is to take these type of products that I'm building and that you could build too, put them in a portfolio. The objective is that we build them up to a certain point and we sell them off. This is not unicorn territory. This is all about just, you know, repeat. Here's a problem. Here's a solution. Let's build it. Let's get it out in the marketplace. Get some runs, get some traction on board, and then sell it to somebody else. Simple as that. And do it again with the next problem. So, anyway, hopefully that's useful to you. By all means, send me a message. Have a chat. Good on you. Bye.